So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how I gained 40 pounds of lean muscle, but not just how I gained the size, how I was able to build a body that can actually perform at a high level. How I was able to run like a long distance athlete, lift like a power lifter, and maintain the physique of a bodybuilder all within 120 days. This isn't some clickbait transformation story or one of those videos made to fry your dopamine receptors with fast cuts and flashy edits. This is an in-depth breakdown of the exact method that made it all possible. So if you're looking for quick entertainment, flashy edits, and a bunch of nonsense to keep your attention every 3 seconds, this is not the video for you. You can go ahead and click off because you're probably not going to sit through a 20 to 30 minutes of actual education. But if you are serious about learning how to build a body that looks elite, performs elite, and become the most anabolic version of yourself, this is the anabolic method. So before we get into it, grab a pen and grab some paper so you can take notes and soak up every bit of information on how you can achieve the exact same results for yourself. Let's get into it. All right, so welcome to the anabolic method. So this is how I was able to gain 40 pounds, 18 kilograms of muscle while being able to run like a long distance athlete, and the exact system that I used, not just to build the muscle, but actually be able to use it. So this is the 120 day system. Now, so obviously I didn't do all of this in 120 days, okay? But here's the thing. I had to learn all of the information. I had to make all of the mistakes. I had to hit dead end after dead end. So this is exactly why I created this system and I created this video, so I can carve a straight line for you through the maze, so you don't have to make all of the wrong turns. So before I implemented this system, I was a very hard gainer. I was always the smallest guy in the room. Bulking would always result in gaining fat, okay? I always blamed my genetics. I was just, convinced that I was born to be small, and, I was always going to stay that way. And the thing is, even after I've managed to gain some size and build some muscle, I was completely immobile. I couldn't move. I was basically a walking thumb, and I couldn't run a kilometer, and I still didn't like what I saw in the mirror. I was still unconfident. And then after I implemented this system, I built the physique that I've always wanted. I function like an athlete, and I'm able to sustain my physique year round. So here's the thing that you need to realize. If you're training hard, you're eating clean, and the mirror still won't change, okay, it's not an effort problem, okay? It doesn't mean that you are undisciplined or you can't stick to anything. So the problem that you might have is one of 3 things, or maybe all 3, okay? Number 1 is you have an application problem. So the thing is, there is no shortage of information out there. You can get all of the information on how to build a great physique on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, okay? All of the information is out there for absolutely free. But the problem comes in to actually apply all of that information to your specific situation and your physique and the goal that you are trying to achieve, okay? That is the number 1 thing that a lot of people struggle with. And then number 2 is your timing, okay? Timing is everything. If you think that it doesn't matter, it absolutely does, okay? You eat all of the right foods, but in the wrong windows, okay, in the wrong amounts. There's no purpose. You literally feed fat cells before muscle. And then number 3, your system, okay? If your system's broken, there's no data, there's no mechanism, you're throwing random efforts at a wall, okay? You're just hoping and you're guessing. And when you are guessing, okay, you will never reach a specific result, because if you want a specific outcome, you need to have specific inputs. All right, so who is this for? If you want to build lean muscle and reconstruct your physique, turn weak points into strengths, then this is for you. If you're tired of feeling smaller than you should be and it's eating away at your confidence, then this is for you. If you spend hours in the gym, try to eat clean, and still see almost no real change in the mirror, then this is for you. If you want to look for a reason to take your shirt off and not a reason to keep it on, then this is for you. If you feel in your gut that you're capable of more and you're ready to actually act on it, then this is for you. All right, so who is this not for? If you can't sacrifice a single bad habit, okay, in order to achieve anything great, there has to be sacrifice, okay? You cannot achieve anything without sacrifice. So all of the partying, the drinking, the late nights, if you're unwilling to sacrifice those things, at least for a little while until you get to where you want to be, okay, then this is not for you. If you want overnight results, you quit the moment something gets hard, then this is not for you. If you're not willing to trade short-term comfort for the version of yourself you actually want to become, then this is not for you. If you're fine with just being another number, average physique, average energy, average life, then this is not for you. If you make excuses more often than you show up, you wait to feel ready instead of starting, then this is not for you. If you are any of these things, then you can just go ahead and click off this video. You don't even have to waste your time. So here's the thing about achieving an elite physique that you need to understand. Eating intuitively, okay? You will never get to your dream physique by eating intuitively, okay? Even if you're eating healthy, if you're just guessing what you are putting in your body, you will never reach a specific result, okay? Unless you've been able to maintain a lean physique year round, you don't understand your body at a high enough level yet, okay? And then only tracking calories. The thing about calories is calories will only determine whether your weight goes up or down, okay? But your macros are going to determine what that weight actually looks like. That's why you get a ton of people that lose, 15, 20 kilograms, but they just end up looking skinny fat. It's because they're only focused on a calorie deficit, okay? There needs to be specific inputs. Right, and then there is no point in muscle if you can't use it, okay? What's the point in being big, but you cannot run a kilometer, okay? You walk up the stairs and you're out of breath. There's absolutely no point to that. And then number 4, there is no point in gaining size if it's just fat. The whole goal is to gain a lot of size and still be able to look good, okay? To still have real definition and real vascularity, okay? You don't just want to be a big water bag walking around with no definition, okay? That is not the goal that we are working towards. All right, and if you don't know who I am, here's a little backstory. So, as far as I could remember, I was always the smallest kid in the room, okay? In school, in university, on the rugby field. You can see in this photo here on the left, I don't know why the fuck I used this photo, but, this is the only one I could find. But here I'm 19 years old. This is my first year of university. And as you can see, I'm super skinny, no real muscle definition. I was constantly bullied, for my size. Okay, I always felt like my size was holding me back, with my rugby, with women. I didn't have the confidence that I wanted. And, I never stood up for myself because, I was always the smallest guy everywhere I went. And I knew I wasn't where I was supposed to be, physically or mentally. Okay, and I had no idea how to fix it, but I was determined, okay, and that was all that I needed. And that's exactly why I said I had to learn every lesson the hard way. I had to hit dead end after dead end until something finally worked. Right, so then for my rugby era, okay, so this is basically my first initial attempt to gain some size, okay. When I started playing rugby, I always had something to prove, okay, and I decided to gain size specifically for my rugby. Now you can see here on the right side, I managed to gain some size, but as you can see, it went straight to my midsection. I would always just end up being fat, gaining a lot of fat in my love handles, a tummy, and to be honest, this photo doesn't even do it justice. I gained so much fat every single time I tried to bulk. Any increase in my calories went straight to my midsection. Okay, but eventually I went on to play professional. I was living my lifelong dream. It became a reality. But then I started chasing the wrong things. Okay, I started chasing attention. I was drinking, I was smoking, I was partying, and my discipline collapsed off of the field. And, because my discipline collapsed off of the field, it started to show on the field. And before I knew it, I got sacked. I got sent back home, living with my parents with the same bad habits. You can see in these pictures here, I was drinking and partying, multiple times a week. This photo here on the right is absolutely horrible. It's like 3 beers in the hand and a spliffy in the other. This is just to paint you a picture of how bad my habits were. But I realized this road wasn't taking me anywhere. I had to get my drive and my ambition back. I had to get my sense of direction back. And that's when I decided to commit to something serious. I decided to compete in my first bodybuilding show. As you can see in this picture, ended up winning that bodybuilding show. And this is where my passion for fitness actually started. I was obsessed with learning every single thing about dieting, training, and building muscle. And, the thing is, after my rugby career ended, I never thought that I would be passionate about anything else in my life. But fitness and bodybuilding helped me reignite that fire in me to chase something. Okay? I felt like I had a sense of direction again. It gave me purpose and direction. But the thing is, bodybuilding as a sport itself didn't really interest me. Okay? What actually fascinated me was the body itself, how it adapts, how it evolves, and the mechanisms behind building an exceptional physique. Okay, I became completely obsessed with everything fitness. I wanted to be surrounded by anything fitness. So that's when I decided to take the biggest risk of my life and move to Dubai. And what better place to be in than the fittest city in the world? Like almost every single person here is in phenomenal shape. This place completely raised the bar for me in terms of fitness and what a good physique looks like. You can have a really good physique here and you'd fit in, you'd just be average. But my start here in Dubai didn't start off as all sunshine and rainbows. Okay, I took the only job that I could find to get here as a waiter. And, this was probably the lowest point of my life. Mentally, I wasn't in a good place at all. I was earning shitty pay. I was working shitty hours. I went through a breakup in this time as well. I completely hated my situation. And I'm not telling you this to feel sorry for me. I'm just trying to paint you the picture of, what my situation was like when I first got here. As you can see, I was earning $600 a month, working 6 days a week, 12-hour work days. Sometimes I was even working 7 days a week, depending on the schedule that I had planned out. This was literally the time that I was the most drained and the most tired. But the thing is, I was in Dubai, and that was literally all that mattered to me. But, the funny thing is, in this time period, I had the least amount of time. I was more tired than ever. I had zero motivation. I had the worst gym. That's why I put this picture here. This is literally the gym that I had to train at. I had a couple of dumbbells. It's a broken treadmill here in the background. Didn't even have a treadmill. I think there was a squat rack here in the corner. That was literally all that I had, to be able to work out. But funny enough, this is the period where I made the most amount of progress. Okay, I gained the most amount of size and muscle, and as you can see in this picture, I'm absolutely jacked here. Here I was well over 200 pounds. I would go to the gym. You can see the time here. This was almost like 3 a.m. in the morning. This was after my working shift, and this is just to show you, right? It doesn't matter what your situation looks like. Okay, it doesn't matter what equipment you have. It doesn't matter what resources you have to your disposal. If you have dedication and you have ruthless ambition to achieve something, you can absolutely achieve that thing that you want to achieve. So then after gaining the size, I realized something. Okay, I was big with muscle, but I wasn't proud of it. Okay, to most people's standards, I probably had their dream physique. I had a lot of muscle, I was bulky, I was jacked, but I knew the truth. I was coasting, I was soft, I didn't really have any vascularity, there was no real definition. As you can see, like, I literally looked like a walking thumb, okay? I had no mobility, and, every single day I told myself that I was fine, but deep down, I knew I was settling for average. Okay, this was not the standard that I wanted to hold myself to. All right, I was living off of protein shakes, calling it nutrition. I was eating clean. Don't get me wrong, I was eating clean in this time, but there was no precision. There was no, specifics. I didn't know exactly what I was putting in my body. I didn't give my body exactly what it needed to create that physique that I wanted. My face was bloated. I was at a watery physique. Like I said, no definition. And, I always told myself, or I kept telling myself that, the results will come as long as I stayed consistent, and obviously what I was doing at this time wasn't working, wasn't getting me any closer to the physique that I wanted. But then I had a wake-up call, okay? What is the point in having all of this muscle and all of this size if I couldn't even run a kilometer without stopping, okay? That absolutely makes no sense, okay? What's the point in having muscle if you can't use it? I was big in size, but I had weak endurance, I had low energy. I couldn't even make it through a day without taking a nap. That's how low my energy was. I was soft in every way that actually mattered. I had the size, but I didn't have the body that I actually wanted, okay? I had a big number on the scale, I had the mass, but what I lacked was cardiovascular output, the energy, didn't have the shredded look that I've always wanted. I had no pride in my reflection. I didn't like what I saw in the mirror, and I hated my training split in this time period, okay? It became so repetitive for me. I was doing the generic bodybuilding split, push-pull legs, all of these generic splits, and I simply just didn't enjoy it. It felt like I was doing the same thing every single day, just going to the gym, doing your sets, doing cardio on the treadmill, and I absolutely hated it. I completely lost passion for training. Now, here's the answer you've all obviously been waiting for. Yes, anabolics were involved, okay? I am on gear. I am not natural, okay? But this is not that type of video. This is not that type of video where the guy is like, look, I gained a shit ton of muscle in the shortest amount of time. I did it completely natural and then ended up lying and actually being on gear, okay? This is not that type of video, okay? I'm being fully transparent because I'm not going to lie to you, but also I want to explain to you why anabolics do not matter at all, okay? You absolutely do not need anabolics to, reach an elite physique. So here's the thing that you need to understand, right, is that gear doesn't fix a broken system, okay? If your system is already broken, it's only going to amplify that already broken system, okay? And you can look at it this way. If you have a car with a broken engine and worn out parts, are you just going to throw a massive turbo into that thing and think that it's going to fix the car? No, it's just going to amplify the already broken system and speed up the process until it completely blows, okay? And this is exactly what happened to me. So if you can take a look at these two pictures, and if you can guess which one of these two guys are on more gear. Okay, if your answer is the guy on the right with the rock solid abs, the obliques, the veins coming through the shoulder, you are absolutely wrong. Okay, the guy on the left was on 3 times more gear than the guy on the right. But the reason why the guy on the right has a 10 times better physique than the guy on the left is because the guy on the left had a completely broken system. Okay, I was training 7 days a week at this stage, but I had absolutely no plan. There was no specific target, no specific goal when I stepped into the gym. I didn't enjoy my training. I was eating healthy, don't get me wrong, I was still eating healthy, following a whole food diet. I was even tracking my calories at this stage, but I had no specific macros, okay, because I was lazy and, I was constantly hungry, I was always tired, and, I used more anabolics to compensate for the effort that I wasn't putting in, okay, but then I fixed my system, okay. Firstly, I used my calories and my macros together and I tracked it exactly, okay. Everything was dialed in. I knew exactly what I was putting in my body. I matched my, my macronutrient distribution according to my total daily energy expenditure and my metabolic rate. I was training with purpose. I had a specific goal every single time when I was stepping in the gym, okay. And I actually had a training split that I absolutely loved, okay. That training split literally brought, the passion back to me for training. And then I fixed my insulin, okay? This is a big thing. My insulin got restored. My nutrient partitioning, got 10 times better, and I was actually pushing the nutrients that I was consuming to the muscle instead of storing it as fat. Okay, so here is the exact system, the anabolic method, okay? It's built from a decade of trial and error, every mistake, every dead end, every mentor, distilled into a 4-pillar framework that takes a man from unfocused, soft, and stuck to an iron mindset, lean, strong, and unmistakable. And the 4 pillars are mindset, habits, nutrition, and training. And I teach it exactly in this order because if I taught you nutrition and training first before I taught you mindset and habits, okay, you wouldn't be able to stay consistent, okay? You wouldn't have the fundamentals in place to actually stay consistent with your diet plan and your training program, okay? And if I taught you habits before I taught you mindset, you wouldn't have the mindset to actually stick to those habits. So that is exactly why I teach it in this specific way. Okay, so pillar 1, mindset. Big question that you need to ask yourself is, what is your why? Okay, the why behind why you are trying to achieve your greatest physique, okay, that is going to be the most important thing. That is the thing that's going to pull you through those hard days when you're unmotivated, because we all know motivation isn't real, okay? It's never going to be there when you need it the most, okay? So you cannot rely on motivation. So your why is going to be a big thing. And your why can't just be, I just want to look good, okay? That is not going to cut it. That is not going to push you through those hard days when you don't want to show up. If your why is just, I want to look better and I want to like what I see in the mirror, okay, that is absolutely not going to cut it. You need to have a bigger why. You need to have a bigger reason why you want to achieve this great physique. Okay? And I can give you an example, okay? If you want to make more money, but your why behind why you want to make more money is simply just to have more money and buy yourself nicer things, okay, that's not going to allow you to put in the effort, to put in the work every single day, even when you're tired, even when you're unmotivated, okay? That's not going to push you through those hard days. But as soon as your why is connected to a bigger reason, okay, let's say you want to take better care of your family, you want to buy your mom a house or a car, okay, you want to, help your parents get out of debt, okay, if that is your bigger why, okay, that is going to allow you to push through those hard days when, you are unmotivated and you don't want to show up, okay, that is what's going to allow you to push through those hard days. And it's the same thing with your fitness, okay, as soon as your why is connected to a bigger reason, to something like, if you just want to be healthier, you want to be able to live longer, enjoy life to the fullest with your kids, okay, that is a bigger why. That's going to push you through those hard days. And then if you just want to be a better provider and protector for your wife, okay, you want to be able to walk down a dark alley and if trouble comes around, someone assaults your wife, you want to be able to do something about it, okay? If you are in the position where you feel like, you don't know if you will be able to do anything about it, okay, that's something that needs to change. That is your why, okay? Or if you just want to be a better example, okay, if you want to be a better example for your kids, okay, if you want your kids to be able to look at you and see a father that is fucking disciplined, okay, he's hardworking, okay, he works on himself every single day, okay, instead of just seeing a father that comes home after work, he sits on the couch, with his fat tummy, opens a bag of chips, okay, and he watches TV, okay, that's not what you want your kids to see. That can be your why, okay, you want to be a better example for the people around you. So what you need to realize is the body will change once the mind decides it. Right, and then pillar 2, okay, habits are how the mindset becomes automatic, okay? You need to take decision making out of your day, okay? Once you do that, okay, you're going to take the failure points out with it, okay? If your habits are so in place, okay, it happens automatic, okay? You know what you need to do on a daily basis, okay? You know what you need to eat, you know what you need to train, you know when you need to do all of those things, okay? And when the hard days comes around, you know exactly how to stay on track without falling off. So that is why habits are so important, okay? And the standard that you need to have is you need to be able to plan tomorrow the night before, okay? Failing to plan is planning to fail, okay? It's as simple as that. You've heard it 100 times before, and it's absolutely true. If you cannot plan for the next day, okay, you absolutely are planning to fail. Okay, and then meal prepping, okay? This is a habit that you need to learn, okay? And this comes connected with, removing decisions from your day, okay? Decisions are where most diets fail, okay? When you are going throughout your day, but you didn't prep any of your meals, all of a sudden you get busy, okay, you have a meeting coming up, or you're going to drive there to pick up your kids, okay, and you don't have your meals with you, okay? Now you have to make a decision, okay? What are you going to get to eat? Where are you going to stop to get to eat? Is it going to be, close to the macros that you need to eat? Is it going to be close to the calories that you need to eat? As soon as you can just remove those decisions, okay, the chances of you actually staying on track are a lot more. If you have your meals packed, there's absolutely no room for failure, right? And then don't strive for perfection. Just aim for consistency, all right? Just do whatever you can to the best of your ability, okay? They're not all going to be perfect days, okay? There are going to be some days where things are going to happen that's out of your control. And as long as you can adapt the habit of just simply doing whatever you can to the best of your ability, you are going to make so much progress, okay? That's ultimately going to allow you to create this into a lifestyle that you can actually sustain, okay? But as soon as you just aim for perfection, you're just going to lose hope. You're going to lose motivation as soon as you get a bad day, okay? But as long as you focus on, I am doing my best, okay, that's ultimately going to create true progress, right? And then accuracy, okay? What you need to understand is when you give yourself an inch, you will take a mile, okay? And a stupid example that I can give you for this is, let's say in your diet you have to eat 200 grams of chicken, but you weigh out 208 grams of chicken, okay? That 8 grams is not going to make a difference like at all. But what you need to realize is you are giving yourself an inch, and that is going to spill over into every single thing that you do. Before you know it, you're stepping into the gym, you're not focusing as much on your form, you're skipping reps, you're not training to failure, you keep snoozing your alarm every single morning, okay? That's going to start spilling over into every single thing that you do, and that's ultimately when it becomes a bigger problem, okay? So accuracy is one of the most important things, okay? The more accurate you can be, okay, the closer you are going to be to reaching the goal that you want to achieve, right? And then final, congruency, okay? You need to start living like the version that you ultimately want to become, okay? As soon as you start adopting the habit of living and visualizing yourself like the version that you ultimately want to become, okay? Every single thing that you do on a daily basis, how you think, how you operate, how you make your decisions, okay? Every single thing is going to come into alignment with that version, okay? But you need to start seeing and believing yourself as that version before it even happens. And then the third pillar, okay, nutrition. And these are some common mistakes that people are generally making, okay? It's if you think that clean eating is structured eating, okay, it's not. Chicken and rice every single day means nothing if the macros and timing are wrong, okay? Clean food in the wrong amounts is still not the right diet, right? And then number 2, your calorie intake does not match your expenditure, okay? The reason why you cannot get shredded is because the only thing that you know about fat loss is a calorie deficit. And the thing that you need to understand is when you enter a calorie deficit, yes, you might lose the weight, but you're just going to end up looking soft, flat, with no real definition, okay? And you need to understand that you cannot simply focus on losing all of the weight all at once just by entering a simple calorie deficit. What you need to focus on is your weekly net calorie intake, not just the calorie intake that you take in on a daily basis, okay? Why is that exactly? Okay, because you are not going to train from Monday to Sunday, okay? Your expenditure from Monday to Sunday is not going to look exactly the same. You are going to take rest days, or well, I hope you take rest days. So the energy that you need for your rest days and your training days are not going to be the same. So obviously, macronutrient distribution needs to be specific to your expenditure throughout your week. Okay, and then number 3, in order to lose fat, I have to eat less. This is the mindset that a lot of people have, okay? Volume is key. The whole idea is not to suffer throughout the process. You want a structure that you can actually stick to. Okay, and how the nutrition setup looks like, okay? This might differ depending on your specific goal, but just to give you an idea, this is what the setup should look like. All right, so meal 1, this is only going to be proteins and fats, okay? No high carbs. This is to stabilize your blood sugar and prevent, morning insulin spike and brain fog, okay? This is exactly why you get that immediate energy dip every single time that you have breakfast in the morning, okay? Because you need to only focus on proteins and fats, okay? The protein is obviously going to give you protein and provide you with amino acids, and the fats is going to slow down your digestion so you get a gradual release from those amino acids. Right, then for your pre-workout meal, okay, this is going to be high protein with high carbs, okay, high fast-acting carbs specifically. Then you want to provide moderate fats, okay. You don't want to have a lot of fats in this meal, okay. You don't want to slow down your digestion too much. We want this reaction to happen fast, but we want a gradual release as well, okay. This is going to drive insulin to push nutrients into the muscle, okay. You're going to be fuller, you're going to get a harder pump, okay. And because of the, moderate amount of fats, that's going to slow down your digestion just a little bit. You're not going to get that mid-session crash, okay. This is something that I struggled with the longest time, okay. And as soon as I figured this out, okay, I was able to maintain all of the energy throughout my sessions, and my intensity, just went through the roof throughout my workouts. Right, then for your post-workout meal, this is once again going to be high protein, high fast digesting carbs with zero fats, okay? We want the amino acids and the glycogen to replenish as fast as possible, okay? Okay, recovery starts immediately, okay? We want this to happen as fast as possible. Okay, then for meal 3, this is most likely going to be your midday meal, and this is always going to be built around complex carbs, like things like potatoes and fiber. This is to slow down your digestion, okay? Usually during, midday, this is where you get the most amount of cravings and when you get the highest hunger spikes, okay? So adding in complex carbs that is slow digesting along with fiber, okay, this is going to keep you fuller for longer, and, it's going to help a lot with those cravings. Okay, and then for your last meal of the day, okay, this is once again only going to be proteins and fats and no carbs, okay? You are inactive during this period, okay? Carbs before bed is going to get stored as fat, okay? Specifically a high amount of carbs, okay? Some moderate amount of carbs is fine, okay? It does obviously improve sleep as well, but you mainly want to focus on proteins and fats in this last meal, okay? Once again, fats are going to slow down digestion, and it's going to allow a gradual release of amino acids while you sleep, okay? This is just going to enhance your recovery and obviously muscle protein synthesis. Right, then for your training day versus your rest day macros, okay? What you need to understand is you cannot have the exact same macros and calories every single day of the week, okay? You can have the same macros and calories on your training days and on your rest days, okay? You obviously have a difference in your expenditure, okay? The amount that you burn on those days, and your diet needs to match that, okay? So for your training days, this is the days we're going to have higher carbs. We obviously keep protein steady, 2 grams to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. We're going to keep fat steady just for some hormonal balance. And then the difference comes in on your rest days, okay? This is where we're going to bring the carbs down because you are less active. We're going to keep protein steady again, and this is where you're going to push your fats up, okay? Because we want to slow down digestion a lot more. We want to prevent cravings a lot more. So this is basically the overall setup that you're going to look at. Right, then when it comes to training, you don't just want to look strong, okay? You actually want to be strong. You actually want to be able to function at a very high level while maintaining a lot of muscle mass, okay? In this picture here on the right, I just got done doing a half marathon. As you can see, I have a decent amount of muscle mass. I'm pretty big, and I'm able to run comfortably. This is ultimately what you want. You want to be strong and look strong at the same time, okay? So when it comes to my training sessions and what I focus on, okay? Lifting, my bodybuilding sessions are always going to be my main priority, okay? Building muscle is still the priority for longevity and building a strong looking physique, okay? I will never abandon my bodybuilding, my hypertrophy sessions, okay? That's still the main pillar. But what I integrated into my training split was running, okay? Running allowed me to build my engine, okay? It allowed me to gain more stamina, better body composition. It's literally a cheat code to get shredded, okay? I always had the basic bodybuilder mindset, okay? I believe that I wasn't able to run or do high intensity workouts because I was going to lose muscle, okay? And I'm here to tell you that is absolutely not true, okay? As long as your diet is in place and you hit your protein goal, you will not lose muscle, okay? I actually believed I gained muscle in this process and I gained a lot better body composition, okay? And this also brought enjoyment into my training split again, okay? I was able to look forward to what I could do on a daily basis again and push my body to another level. Okay, then hybrid sessions, okay? These workouts are what allowed me to fully function like a weapon, okay? The combination between lifting heavy and endurance is what builds the mind and the physique to a completely different level, okay? This is really where you test yourself, okay? And this brought so much enjoyment to my training split again as well. Okay, and then for my overall training split, what that looks like, okay? This is goal driven, okay? This is exactly what I wanted to achieve, okay? I would do legs on Mondays, chest and shoulders on Tuesdays. Then I would bring in my hybrid session on a Wednesday. Then I would do a short run, okay? This is where I normally do my faster run or a track session, okay? I would do back and hamstrings on a Friday, a long run on Saturday, and then, I would just focus on steps on a Sunday, just to, prioritize recovery as well, okay? Do you see much variety is in this training split, okay? This genuinely allowed me to enjoy my training again. When I was just doing bodybuilding workouts, okay, your basic, bro splits, push-pull leg splits, okay, it was just the same shit over and over again, okay? I knew I was going to the gym every single day and I was picking up shit, okay? That there is no excitement in that. But with this, I have something to look forward to every single day. I have a new way that I can push my body every single day. And with the running as well, I'm able to enjoy outdoors a lot more. I'm a very outdoorsy person. So if you are as well, okay, this is something that you will enjoy. You can go and run at different locations. This brings so much more enjoyment to your training. And that is so important. This is something that a lot of people don't understand. Stop making it feel like your training is a chore, okay? It's not supposed to feel like that. You're actually supposed to enjoy what you are doing. That's ultimately how you're going to be able to sustain it and do it for the rest of your life. Okay, and as a result, this literally allowed me to enjoy my training, more than I've ever done in the past 3 years, okay? I look forward to it every single day, okay? I prioritized performance first, okay? Waking up excited every single day what I'm going to put my body through, okay? And precision through the process, okay? Precision in my training bled into precision into everything else because I enjoyed my training so much, okay? It allowed me to push myself harder. It allowed me to have a lot more focus in my training sessions, and that bled into everything else. And then I just got aesthetics as a byproduct, okay? Once my performance was up, I got leaner, I was more vascular, I had more definition, okay? I literally looked better, even when I was like in just bodybuilding mode, okay? This is the best that I've ever looked. It's because my performance, was at a higher level. Right, then for the hidden lever, okay, insulin sensitivity. This is literally the variable that decides your fate. And this is exactly why the exact same foods might build muscle on me and put fat on you. It's not the food that's the problem, okay? It's where the food goes. And where the food goes is decided by how insulin sensitive you are, okay? And how we do this exactly is when our macros are aligned to our weekly expenditure, okay, when our carbs are scaled to what the body actually demands on, across the week, not a flat daily guess. Okay, this is why it's important. Once you do this, okay, you're going to have a lot better insulin sensitivity. Okay, your insulin sensitivity is going to be restored. Okay, and then the body responds a lot better. Okay, there's no more constant spikes. Okay, your body is not in storage mode anymore. Okay, it's actually going to use the nutrients to build the muscle instead of storing it as fat. Okay, and then what happens is you get better nutrient partitioning. Okay, your body learns where to send the food. The muscle cells become the priority destination, not the fat cells, okay? Your carbs get pushed to muscle. That's ultimately what we want. The same calories, different result. Glycogen fills the muscle, drives the pump, drives the recovery, instead of sitting in your midsection, okay? This is what insulin sensitivity creates, okay? This is why it's a main priority in this system. And this is the exact system that I was able to use for multiple of my clients to get the exact same results, not just to be able to build the muscle, but actually be able to perform at a high level and sustain it. So if you've watched this video all the way to the end and you actually feel like this is something that you need and this is actually something that can help you, but most importantly, that you're actually ready to start taking action to work towards your goals and not just make the old excuses that you've made up until now, I have an offer for you. There's a link in the description. You can book a private call. We can talk a little bit more and we can discuss how we can get the exact same results for you. But be aware, you actually need to be ready to start taking action. Okay, this is not a free value call. This is not a let me learn more call. This is not a discovery call. Okay, you actually need to know what you want to achieve and you actually need to be ready to work towards it. Okay, if you are ready, click the link in the description and I'll see you on the call.